I'm Reed Addis. I'm a registered architect. I am also a certified consultant with Bluebeam. So I'm going to take you through some of the new features in this. I'm going to take you through basically all the new features in this release. And those features are essentially interface changes and improvements. So for those of you who are already using 2018, you're probably familiar with the change in the interface. Which begs the question, why are you here? But we'll find out with questions you might have. For those of you that are coming from earlier releases, any earlier release, the new look is going to be a little bit shocking. And I've been using the software for a while on and off, but I'm still finding things in new places. The idea is that the old software had a kind of complex command bar interface at the top of the screen, which wasn't really very intuitive. But if you use the software for a long time, you sort of memorized where things were. If you're new to the software, it's very confusing to try to remember where things are. So they've tried to simplify that. In addition, side panels that used to have to remain open, they've tried to simplify those. And then at the bottom of the screen, there's something called a markup list. So I'm going to show you all of those changes this morning. So Bluebeam Revu is a markup. It's a reader and a printer. So you can open PDF files and you can print with it, but it does so much more than the Adobe basic product does. The idea behind this is that it's for the creation of edited PDFs. So if you have to mark up a PDF, or you want to do a takeoff of a PDF, or you need to do an online collaborative meeting to go over a project and review it with maybe up to 500 other people, or if you need to work on projects, but you are at home or out in the field somewhere and don't have access to the office computer, there's a way to do that with this product as well. The core functionality of the product, and these are some of the older icons, includes in this, there's an intuitive interface to work with. The markup tools are easy to work with as well. There is something called a tool chest. Now, for each industry and each type of engineer, there are some preset markup tools, but it's also pretty easy to create your own markups tools and then create your own tool set that you can use on your machine or on other machines by exporting it. There's an advanced markup list at the bottom. Every single thing you put in the file, be it a piece of text or a cloud or a yellow mark, goes into the markup list, and it will have your name and the date associated with it as well. And then real-time collaboration with Bluebeam Studio, which is free with the product and has unlimited storage at this point in time. The Studio portion of the product is broken down into two separate groupings. The first is called Sessions. Sessions are for PDF type files only, and they're designed to work online with up to 5,000 documents. Good luck keeping track of that, and up to 500 different users at the same time. The idea is that you can upload a couple of PDFs or as many as you need, and then everyone can review them simultaneously. Sessions are designed really as short-term collaboration. However, you don't have to close a session. So I've had some open for months and months and months just so I don't have to recreate them all the time. And you can do that as well. Some offices choose to do that. They can also be just a one-time session, and when you're finished, you can get a printout of the PDFs that have been marked up, as well as a listing of all of the comments that were made. Projects are intended as sort of a cloud-based storage site, sort of like Dropbox or those sorts of ideas where you can upload any file that you want, Word documents, review PDF files, AutoCAD drawings, Revit projects, PowerPoints, spreadsheets. And as long as you have the software on your computer that you're accessing the project from, you can access that information. Okay, So what we've been waiting for is what's new in the product. I'm going to basically walk you through from this one slide the changes in the interface. So the first thing is simply simplified navigation. So let me see if I can get over here, and I will show you the interface. For those of you who are new to the product, there are a set of panels on the left side and panels on the right side that is not what an arrow looks like. Let's try that again. There are panels on the left side. Here we go. Panels on the right side. You can also have down at the bottom the markup list, and at the top, if you are coming from an older release, you'll notice that the command bar is totally gone, and what we have is simply a set of pull-down menus. If you're new to the software, it's going to look pretty much as you would expect a product to look in Windows. Now, the pull-down menus have a variety of different options within them, and the idea is, we sort of switched back to a review. We'll show you the different profiles that we can set up. The idea is that in the previous release, it was kind of confusing to find things. So if you went to get markup tools, they were sometimes in different menus, or if you were trying to find things out about your particular document, they were sometimes in different menus. And so you were kind of hunting around for those particular items. What the people at Bluebeam have tried to do is simplify where you find this information. So for example, if you are working on something for your files, you have the open and new and combined files, saving as, emailing files, anything sort of file related. The edit pull down is not really for markups. It's for basically adding, selecting items in the file or dropping in a snapshot. View really has anything to do with the visuals on the screen. So you could go ahead and choose something like split vertical, and so I could have my document in two different views over here if I wanted to. I could set it up so that the views were coordinated. See if I can get this to come up. So you could get it set up so the views can be synchronized. So if I move one view, the other view will move simultaneously with it, or you can set it up down here at the bottom on the status bar so that the views aren't synchronized with each other. So anyway, view-related stuff is now going to be listed here under the view pull-down. The document, again, really has to do with this particular document that you have open, so you can add additional pages to the PDF. If it's a multi-page document, you can extract those, you can crop, you can do color processing, reduce your file size, repair the file if there's something wrong with it. Batch are all of the batch processes that you can do with Bluebeam Revu. Now, some of the batch processes are exclusive to the Extreme product, others are not. But they'll be listed here now all in one spot, whereas before they were listed in a variety of other places. So we've had some users actually say, oh, it's really great that you've added this particular batch process like batch OCR or batch script or something of that sort. And it's that product, that feature actually has been in the product for years and years and years. No one ever found it before. The tools menu is really where the action occurs. So there's a section for your markups. And again, you can have different toolbars that are open with markups, or you can access them from here. Stamps are going to be listed there, the measuring tools below that. There are sketch tools in there, form creation tools, digital signing, hyperlinking, attaching files, and then access to all of the different toolbars in the software. There's this actually nice new feature in there that really doesn't get talked about very much, but it's called the reuse tool. And that allows you to simply continue using the previous tool that you had been using. And I don't have a keyboard macro for that, but that would be a good one to add so that you can just basically, if you need to get back to that particular tool, run it again. The window, again, is for adjusting the image on the screen, and then we'll talk a little bit about the help menu. Okay. In addition, the profiles have been simplified. So out of the box, there are 4 profiles. There's the review, advanced, quantity, takeoff, and field issues. You can create your own. So for one of the exercises for certification, we had to create this flooring takeoff interface. You'll notice the toolbars for editing are along the right-hand side of the screen right now. There really aren't any toolbars across the top. However, if I switch from the review profile to the review advanced profile, you'll see that things reorganize a bit on the screen. So you have the ability to move things around, adjust which panels go where and which tools go where. Do you want your toolbars across the top, across the bottom? Do you want to open up different toolbars? I can right-click on a toolbar, and then you can save that as a profile. So again, under the profile menu, you have something called Manage Profiles, and you can save the profile there or simply save it right here. Okay. So again, the idea was this simplified interface to start with. We have, let's see, let me go back to the presentation. So the Dynamic Properties Toolbar is next, and this was an item, again, to try to simplify things. For instance, when I go to put I want to put a revision cloud in here, or maybe a revision cloud with a comment. If I came to Tools and Markups and came down to Cloud with text, when I click on that, in order to adjust the settings for that, I used to have to open up here on the right-hand side this panel. And this panel takes up a fair amount of your screen space. It has all of the settings for what you want the particular markup to look like. But instead of doing that, you'll notice across the top of the screen here that the Dynamic Properties palette has opened up as well. And again, I have all of my features in here. For instance, the line color, the opacity of the line, what you want the line to look like. You also can control the size of that. There is a fill color if you want, and again, you can set the opacity for that. There's a highlight tool. There is the line tool that comes off of the markup, et cetera, et cetera. So there's all of these options across the option bar that you can very quickly set if you want. You can also afterwards, new features, you can also afterwards come back and change those. So again, notice that the dynamic toolbar up at the top, the dynamic properties toolbar at the top has vanished from the screen. If I click on this now, I now have the ability to do some marking up on there. So again, if I want to turn on some fill color, I can do that. I can adjust its opacity if I want to adjust that down a bit. I can come over to my text box and make adjustments to that. I could change the font and the colors, and I could do a fill or a box around that if I wanted to. So again, there it said 0 point, but I have the ability to click on that to make it a little bigger. One of the nice things I like at the top, which I haven't really found sort of in previous releases, is this box right here. If you don't see it, let me see if I can point it out, which is the reduce or adjust the size of the text box. And when you click on that, it adjusts the text box to fit exactly the size of the text. And I'm not sure I saw that in previous releases, but if you guys did, you probably have better eyesight than I do. So again, all of those nice features are available. One of the things that is very important when you are putting in these particular markups is the subject. And again, you can get to the subject over here on the right-hand side of the screen. And right now the subject is called Cloud Plus. that might not be a really good markup. So maybe I want to call it something like meeting. You also have the ability to come up to the dynamic properties toolbar, and far left, there's your dropdown. And again, you could change the subject. Now, what's important about the subject is that at the bottom of the screen, on the bottom left, I'm going to click on the expand markup list. And you'll notice that as you're putting your markup list in, the first column on the left at the bottom says subject. And things are being organized by subject here. And here's one called Cloud Plus. Well, if this really was having to do with an architectural markup, or it was the architect marking it up, I might want to come along and say, well, you know, really, that we shouldn't call that Cloud Plus. We'll change that to architect. And when I do that, that will be added now. You'll see that it's highlighted in the list when I click on it, and it's now moved into that subject area. And that's a good way to do sorting on your markups. Another thing you can do with the subject is this later on can be tied to a cell in an Excel spreadsheet so that you can do quantity takeoffs much more easily if you already have Excel spreadsheets set up to do that kind of estimating for you. Okay, so let's go over and look at another feature that's new in here, view and markup modes. So in previous release of the software, what you had were different products. You had Bluebeam Revu, and then there was a free product called Bluebeam Revu. So if you wanted to be able to just see the markups but not actually use any of the tools, you could load that product. But there might also be some issues with licensing. Let's say you had a pool of licenses and you ran out of licenses and someone needed one. Someone might not be able to get to that license very easily, or sometimes you transferred it from one machine to another. Now what you can do is you can very easily, in the review pull down at the top, there are two different modes now. So there's something called view mode and something called markup mode. If you want to return a license to the pool, or if you want to use the view product, you would simply download Revu, and when you install it, instead of licensing it, you would simply choose view mode. If you have the product license and go to view mode, the license is returned to a pool if you're using pooled licensing, and then you can simply come back and go and switch back to markup mode. When you go to view mode, of course, you don't get any of the markup tools. Okay. The markup summary dialog box. So again, a lot of people may know about this already, but the markup summary dialog box will keep a list of all of the markups that you have down here at the bottom of the screen. And again, if you have a multi-sheet document, this would be a little more impressive, what I'm going to show you, to move among the different sheets. But I'll just show you in simplified form what you can do with this. So if you would like to output this list, excuse me, of markups at the bottom, there has been a tool in there, but some people might not have noticed it, which is now placed in a pretty prominent position for outputting your markup list. And again, if I come over here on the left and click on the second tool down, which is thumbnails, we'll see that there really is only one sheet in here, or one thumbnail in the product at this point. So I can now come over here and choose this drop down, and you have different ways to do this output. So you have the ability to do a CSV, an XML, or PDF. PDF is my favorite. Now, in previous releases, when you clicked on this, it took you through a series of dialog boxes that you could answer questions in and then finally get the output that you wanted. You now have it's all organized here into one dialog box. So it'll list the different files that you can summarize, and it can be what's open, or you have the ability to add additional files or folders if you want. You have an ability to choose which columns at the bottom in the markup list you want included or excluded. You can filter, and you can choose your output type. Now, because I chose PDF, it shows that in the list. But if you change your mind, you can go to that dropdown. What I like is appending and hyperlinking to my current document. You can append a date to the title if you want. You can set up a template if you want. You can set up page breaks. There are different options for the size of the icons or the flow. You can save this configuration or load additional ones. What I'm going to do is simply pick OK at this point. It goes ahead and does the processing. And let's just see when it finishes. It looks like there's 25 items. So it's sort of taking its time. Here we go. So now we have our markup list. If I open up, and by the way, again, is part of the simplified interface I didn't really mention before, the left panel and the right panel. Again, those used to take up a lot of space, as did the command bar at the top. But now you can simply expand or contract those by clicking on the particular tool that you want. So there are the tool sets that I talked about. There's Studio, which we'll be coming to on the right-hand side. We have our settings. We can also look at our measure tools over here. Again, these can be expanded or reduced to this sort of minimal bar. You also have the ability to right-click on there and choose Show, and you can choose which side you want things to show on, or you can hide different features if you don't want them. So for instance, if you're not doing digital signatures a lot, you can simply right-click on that and hide that, and simply click on it and it rolls up. So again, with these, if I look at the thumbnails now, there's my original file, but then there are these outputted markups. And so for instance, again, if you had a multi-page document, there is the information about what the subject was, what page it's on, what the author and date, color. But what's also really pretty cool is it's hyperlinked. So if I click on that, it takes me right to that particular markup. There's also a couple of interesting arrows down here at the bottom, if you haven't noticed them before. There's a previous, and then there's a next. So from that markup list, I can go back to it by simply clicking on the previous. Well, maybe I can't on that particular one. Let's see if I can do it from here. Let's see if I go click on this and then click on previous view. Well, okay, so make a liar out of me. Usually it works when you're going from one a normal sheet to another. It doesn't look like it's actually working for me here on the markup list. So I won't try to show you that one. But again, you can simply click on that. I can come back over into here and click on any of these, and it'll take me right to that particular markup. So again, if you output this and send that off to someone, they'll have a summary list that's hyperlinked to the file that they can see, and they can very quickly, again, with a multi-sheet document, see those particular items. Okay, let's see what else we've got that we can take a quick look at here that's new. More Studio project flexibility. Okay, so let me show that. Let's go over and start up Studio by signing in. Again, if you've been using the product, you'll notice that the interface is very different from the previous release, a little bit easier to understand. Sign in. You go ahead and use the password that you've, oops, I'm not sure I got that. Let's try that again. Use the password that you've set up and sign in. The Studio product is divided into two groupings up here on the left. You have projects or sessions, and then you have projects. Sessions are, again, intended as usually a one-off idea. So here are my sessions that are available. So it says all sessions. And I actually do have a bunch that I've maintained. But you can, again, just open one up, use the session to mark up documents, and then close that session out. Projects are intended, again, to be sort of an online storage space. So let me take you into a session quickly here. Again, if I click on Demo Session, it will open up the last document that I had in there. In theory, it should open up the last document. It worked perfectly before, and I'm not sure what it's struggling with right now, but it should open up that particular document. Let's see if I can't get that to run. Oh, there we go. Okay, so there is the markup, right? And you can choose which file you were working on. You'll also see all of the people that were involved in it, and it looks like I was sort of sadly by myself working on it, but you would be able to see all of the other people listed there. You can also get an output list of that. From here, you can also get a summary of that as you close out a session. Now, you can continue to work in a particular session if you want. You can exit eventually. You can also use if you have set up the session, you can invite different attendees to join. I'm simply going to leave the session, which means that I'm no longer in there online. So I'm now going to go over to projects. Projects, if I click on this particular, let's say, project here, it's going to open up, yes, double click, there we go. It's going to open up this particular, I'll close this file over here. It'll open up my project, and it's going to look now more like File Explorer does on your machine back in the office. So there will be different folders listed. You'll have folders under the folders. Again, there are additional folders available. This is a read-only project, so these icons up at the top here are grayed out, but let me open up this other project, and there we go. So now what's new in here is that I have two projects open, which you couldn't do in the past. And what you can do at this point is you have the ability to add additional files. So I could upload files. I could come over here and click Add Files. I could come in and choose the files I might want. Maybe I would like this particular file uploaded. I can simply say Open and go ahead and pick OK. And I can continue to work on other things while those files are uploading. So you're not locked out to, like, please wait while you upload 100 files. You can also drag and drop or copy files from one project to another very easily. So that is a nice feature as well in the software. You'll also notice over here in this particular project, let me close this one down. You'll also notice there are different file types. So I have PDFs, I have CSV, I have DWGs, and you can upload really any type of file format. And as long as you have the software on your machine to run it, you can simply click on it, and it will go ahead and open it up for editing. You also have the ability to save this back to your server in the office. So if you're making changes offline, those can be brought back down to the office machine for others internally if you want that. And again, you have the ability to invite other people to join that particular project. Projects kind of keep going on a regular basis, and usually if you've been working on a project once a day, you'll get an email from the Bluebeam people that basically says that you these have been the changes made on the project that day. Okay, so let me close projects, and I'm going to sign out of Studio. Okay, so let's see what else we've got. Custom keyboard shortcuts. So I'm not going to go through changing these, but I do want to show it to you because, again, that has been one of the #1 item listed for people that want to work on the software to be able to change those. By the way, just to show you this file access, which is kind of a nice item, we cover this in training. The file access, the recent files that you've been working on get listed down here at the bottom. You also have the ability, you'll notice there's a little pin icon. You can pin these, and if I right click, I can pin them, and you can create different categories to pin things into. So I can create, here's one called training folder. Here's one called demo. And again, I can pin them into different groupings, or I can simply pin them and then it'll just list the folders. So these at the top listed under training are just pinned from that folder. These listed here are from a variety of different folders. And the reason you might want to do that is that you get this very long list at the bottom. I might right click on there and say clear all, and I would say yes, and you've lost all of your items in that particular list. Okay. So let me go ahead and let me just see where I was. Lost my train of thought. Keyboard shortcuts. So let me go ahead and open a file up, and I'll show you where the keyboard shortcuts are. Again, that's under review, and about halfway down we have keyboard shortcuts. You have a list of all of the tools in the software, and again, the particular shortcut, you can click on that and edit the shortcut. Now, there's also an ability to restore your defaults. And so this is a wonderful list. So you're saying, well, like, where can I get an output of this list? And the answer is yes, there actually is a new list. You can get an icon, PDF of all of these that's listed in under help and under the tutorial. So there's a listing of all of these. Not only do you have the tools, but then the different commands that are available. So you can see all of your keyboard shortcuts, and all of these are fully customizable. They can be exported, and then you can import them. So if you want to set up Office standards for new keyboard shortcuts, that is always possible. So let me go ahead and pick OK. In the past, you couldn't do that. So any release prior to 2018, no editing of the keyboard shortcuts. Those were only available. What you got, or what you see, is what you got, and that was really it. Let me go and pick OK. And the tutorials. So let me just show you those tutorials. So while we offer training classes in person in all 3 offices in Boston, New York, and Philadelphia, some people learn different ways or don't want to take the sessions, or don't have time to take the sessions. So you can go hunt around online for tutorials, and there are a lot of great ones on the Bluebeam website. But from the help pull down, we also have the ability to access these tutorials. By the way, here's that keyboard shortcut guide that I was talking about. And if I click on that, you'll be able to see in here all of the shortcuts listed, right? So pretty nice, and this can be printed. Again, it's just a PDF that they created for you. So under help, you now have the welcome to review item. And again, this is kind of a complex PDF because they've dropped in a video. It's 1 minute and 9 seconds long. There are also sample floor plans that you can open. You also have the ability to launch review tutorials. And so if you click on this, you now have the access to markup tools, or quantity takeoff, or collaborative review, field issues, and next. And you can then start working on that particular tutorial. Okay. So that's a very nice intro to the product for people that are totally new to it. So that pretty much is a listing of the new features in 2018. The only other one that I kind of find interesting, which I'll just show you quickly here, is this, again, the one I mentioned. Let me just see if I'm in the advanced. Looks like I'm still in my switched out of my profile. Let me get back into the advanced. It can also change the profile you're in by switching to a file that's linked to that particular profile. What I wanted to show was this item down here, which is this reuse item. So if I turn that on at the bottom, and let's say I click on a cloud, now I can drag and I can drag and I can drag and I can, oops, I didn't want to drag that off. And I can, let me put that back on. Let me attach that back to the left. Okay, and we'll move that guy back up. But you can go ahead and run these tools over and over and over again. Normally with that turned off, if I click on a tool and I put it in, now I have to go back up and click on the tool and put it in again. So I like that reuse. I'm not sure people have seen that before. I've never seen that in previous releases, but it always is possible that it was there and I just missed it. Okay, so new from earlier release, the last release, there were a lot of major improvements to the software. And I just want to run through those for those who might be new to 2017 or 18, or if you're using 2016 or earlier and aren't aware of these. So there was a new feature for polylength segments. So you could measure, instead of just measuring one length, you could now create a single polyline and it would give you that total. So for instance, if you needed to check distance to egress, that would be a good way to do that. Split and resume, if you had put in, let's say, check marks and you were, or symbols, and you were using those to do a count, you would basically have to, it was kind of tricky to combine them or to split them. Now, if you decide you want to continue a count or a checklist, you can do that. You can also pick any one of those items, right click, and choose to split it. Rise drop features for markups for MEP stuff. Slopes. If you are working, let's say, on a roof area here, and you put in an area markup, the area markup is flat. But if that roof is sloping and has a pitch, the area is different, right? We know that if it's on an angle, it's going to be a little bit bigger than if it's flat in the drawing. So you can actually add a slope to the area, which will then adjust the quantity of that. Cutouts. If you've put an area in, you now had the ability to put a cutout shape. So for instance, if I did a whole floor area and I wanted to do cutouts for columns or other items, you now have the ability to do that to reduce your square footages. And you also had the ability to now turn on, toggle on segment captions with width and height. So if you had a boundary, not only would it tell you the area of that boundary, but you could now get the individual lengths of all of the perimeters. Count enhancements, again, you could now use custom symbols, and that's my notice that I have used up my time. So let me turn that off. I'll just go through this quickly. So you could add symbols now to counts. Again, you had the ability to split and merge counts. In the measurement tools, there was now a width and height that was added. You could add a caption to the markup, and it would show the width and the height. You can easily copy and paste from one file to another or one view to another. 360-degree photos were added. There were additional capture from options of a markup. There's an icon for moving in a view, and you had the ability to adjust the aspect ratio. There were 3D PDF enhancements to the product, and there were some plugin enhancements as well for the CAD and the Extreme that would allow for these markups in different programs such as Revit, AutoCAD, and SketchUp. Okay, so just to recap what we went through today, again, the whole reason for this particular interface, the particular release was simplifying the navigation. So the energy went into that, and what they have found is by simplifying the interface, it makes it easier to use the product. Those of you coming from early releases, you have my initial sympathies. It does take a little getting used to where to find things, but if you work in this for about a week or so, it'll become fairly natural to you. You'll just learn to forget where you were. And in fact, as you use this for a while, when you go back to the old interface, you're going to go, wow, that was really screwy to kind of work in there. The Dynamic Properties Toolbar gives you access to your properties without having to open a large panel. View and markup modes for being able to switch out of licensed or unlicensed products. The markup summary dialog box in the markup list at the bottom of the screen. Studio project flexibility. You can customize your keyboards and new tutorials.